play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm Shane Sachs, your host. Thanks so much for joining us, whether you're listening over the air on 96.5 FM The Answer out of Little Rock, or if you're listening via the stream on the 96.5 FM TheAnswer.com website, or if you're listening after the fact by podcast from the website or from iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, any of those. Thanks so much for listening. And also remember, we're always a week delayed on Krypton Radio. KryptonRadio.com is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. And one thing I want to mention, we're going to get right into it. I always put up show notes. There's show notes live right now at shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com. So whether you're listening live or if you're listening delayed via the podcast or on Krypton Radio, the show notes for today's show are up, and that's links to what we're talking about, information on my guest, links to information on his cool stuff. So make sure to go to shaneplays.com and check it out. Remember, this is live Geek Talk Radio. This isn't just a podcast. It's a live radio show that goes out of effect as a podcast. So just like political talk or sports talk or religious talk or, hey, the car guy kind of talk, this is Geek Talk Radio. It's a journey in things we love. So you can call me at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. And you can ask a question, you can have a comment from me or my guest. Remember, this is live talk radio, Geek Talk Radio. As far as I know, at least around here, Christopher, my guest, I don't know of anybody else doing Geek Talk Radio. Maybe they are. Maybe, yeah. So, yeah, if you can, maybe get up. There you go. Yeah. I'm not sure that your mic's on. Is his mic on, Gio? I don't think it is. Yeah, there you go. Now try it again.
You hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I'm not aware of anybody else doing this.
Okay.
No.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. So no, you sound great. So, all right. So that's Kristofer Upjohn. I'll be introducing him here in a moment. He is the Film Phreak, and he is an expert and an author on the horror genre, horror as art, not just shock. And we'll be talking about that as our main topic today. So make sure to stick around. I met him. Are you going to River City Comic Expo again this year?
I don't know yet.
You're not sure?
My future is very much up in the air at the moment.
Okay, at the moment, because that's where we met last year.
Yes.
And had a great conversation with you.
Absolutely.
And I've still got, you sold me the Belgeriad books.
Yes, I
for
did.
a very, very reasonable price. Mm-hmm. I think $1.
$1.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Those are right
You're
there
welcome.
in a place of honor on my desk. So anyway, so welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
After the first break, we'll get into, horror and what you do, and we'll go more into what you do. Before then, I got a couple of notes, and then I've got my news segment, which is going to be a little different today. I'm going to talk about what Marvel's done with Captain America, and I'm incredibly, incredibly upset about this, more than just being a comic book. So we'll talk about that here in a second. First of all, congratulations to giveaway winner Ewan McLaughlin from Scotland.
Scotland.
Scotland. He,
wow.
This, we had a giveaway through the radio show. And, people listen by the podcast, and it's on Facebook. So, yeah, he got clued in on it from Scotland. He won the Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook from show sponsor Troll Lord Games.
That's great.
Yeah, congratulations, Ewan. We'll get that to you, and I will have more giveaways in the future.
Named Ewan.
Huh?
Of course he's named Ewan.
Yeah, and it's actually, I had to ask him how to pronounce it because it was, it's spelled kind of Gaelic. Mm-hmm. And I made a guess, and he's like, well, that's a better guess than most people make. But
what was his last name?
McLaughlin.
I wonder if they're enemies of the Macintosh. That's where I come from.
Really?
Yeah.
So you guys are mortal enemies?
I don't know. I don't know. That's what I wonder. We may have to fight.
Right. You may have to. Well, anyway, Ewan, if you're listening to this, congratulations and thanks for entering the contest. Want to also mention that for the first time this year, we're doing organized role-playing games at the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th, right here in Little Rock. And for the first time, now there's been games through Game Goblins at the River City Comic Expo, but this is the first time that we're doing organized RPG play.
Wow.
We've got D&D, we've got Castles of Crusades, we've got GURPS, we got Numenera, Star Wars, Pathfinder, Apocalypse. We got a new game. It's like Apocalypse Age, or I need to look into that. So it's really cool. And if you buy your RCCE ticket through Game Goblins, it's the same price as if you buy it at the door, but you get a free RPG session. And each RPG session after that gets you store credit at Game Goblins.
That's
so
pretty sweet.
Yeah, so it is. Do you play role playing games?
Not in a long time, but when I did, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
you got to find it. It's hard to find a good game master.
Well, here you go. Yep. Come on out. So if people want to play or whatever, come on out. And the link to that, you can go to Facebook, and there's a RPG Games at River City Comic Expo Facebook event page, or you can go to the show notes and it's linked there. And finally, thank you to our new Patreon supporter, and I hope I'm going to pronounce this right. If I mispronounce it, please forgive me. Pashka Enzi. That's P-A-S-C-H-A-N-Z-E-N-Z-I. And he just recently pledged on Patreon. Remember, this show, we are blessed to have sponsors, but they don't cover all the bills. And we do appreciate our Patreon supporters. And for every $1 of Patreon support to get, our news team gets a penny an hour raise. That's a pretty good deal.
That's pretty neat.
Penny an hour raise. So thank you, Pashka. If I'm saying that, am I mispronouncing that, I do apologize. My intent is to show you respect. So that's the show notes and stuff to move forward. Now we're going to have a different and abbreviated news segment. I don't need the news sound today, GL. So don't need that. This is something. This is not a news story that the news staff brought for us. This is something that happened on Wednesday. That if you're into comic books at all, and it's very possible whether you're into comic books or not, you've heard this story. It's really blowing up, and I think that this is getting pretty out of control compared to what Marvel was expecting. I knew they knew it would be notorious and they would get some PR out of it. But I think it's blowing up. If you go to their Facebook or their Google Plus or their Instagram, they are absolutely getting pummeled by the outrage. And there's always, it's a typical thing in comic books, Christopher, that people make it, and this is beyond that.
See, I haven't even heard about
this.
Of course, I don't like Captain America that much.
Well,
so,
I think even if people don't like the character, maybe they can understand why people are upset.
Right.
So I'll lay it out. Here's what happened. So they announced, now for the last couple of years, they've had Captain America, Steve Rogers, old and like
classic
90.
Captain America.
Right,
yeah.
because he's, the super soldier serum was evidently degrading in his system, so he became old.
Half-Life caught up to him.
Yeah, his age caught up to him.
Okay.
And so you've had Sam Wilson as the Falcon as Captain America.
Okay, that's why he became Captain America.
Yeah, which is fine. That's telling a good story or whatever. I like the Falcon. Now they've done some political commentary with it, which again, not completely over the top, but Marvel, they've got this all new, all different thing they're doing where they're changing genders, they're changing this, they're changing
Thor.
Yeah, they're changing orientations, all this stuff. Which my preference would be introduce new characters that represent that stand on it rather than co-opt existing characters.
That wouldn't sell as many.
It wouldn't sell, but which tells you that your audience isn't as interested in it as you say they are. But that's a whole nother topic for another time.
Storytelling, not just shock value.
Right. So they're wanting to, and you know your shock. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of horror, I'm horrified by this. I really am by what they did, and a lot of other people are as well. So what they did was suddenly Steve Rogers is young again.
Okay.
Through like a cosmic cube, right? Which is the Marvel
naturally
Deus Ex Machina. You can do everything you want with it. Reality changing. So they came out and said he's back.
Okay.
And then a new Captain America comic book launched Wednesday. So what you have now is you have Captain America as the Falcon, or the Falcon, and you have Steve Rogers. So there's two Captain Americas. Okay, whatever. There's two Spider-Man right now too, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, I like the other Spider-Man, but to me, it's weird that they have two. But anyway,
it is.
So what they did was they came out and said this isn't some temporary thing. They said this is Steve Rogers. This is not a clone, not an imposter, not mind control, not someone else acting through Steve.
They can always retcon that later.
They can, but they've retconned, which means you change the continuity. They're not saying this is a new thing. They're saying that this has been through Cap's entire 75-year history. They're saying you just didn't know, but now you know.
Okay.
They're saying he's been a Nazi the whole time.
Really?
They're saying he's been a Nazi the whole time. Now, what they're saying is he's a Hydra agent, But bear with me. Hydra in Marvel is like the super Nazis. Hydra came out of the Nazis in World War II and said, you guys aren't doing it good enough. We're going to do it better.
Yeah, they're the specter of the Nick Fury Captain America world.
But they're basically the Nazis.
Right.
They represent everything the Nazis represent plus more.
Right.
And so now they're saying that the World War II veteran superhero that was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, who are Jewish immigrants.
As a symbol of American
patriotism. As a symbol of America, and again, the fight against the Nazis.
Right.
The weekend before Memorial Day, when we honor our dead, our armed forces who have died in war, they come out and say that this symbol that people beyond comic book fans look up to, he is held up as a symbol of what is good about America. Right. We're not perfect, but that's a symbol of what's good about America. What always doing the right thing, not being pure, not being corrupted, always doing the right thing.
Right.
Now he's not just suddenly he's a Nazi. Right. He's always been a Nazi.
He was Marvel's Superman in terms of the square jawed.
Right. But beyond that, I mean, he's wearing the flag.
Right.
He's Captain America.
I like the twist, but they should have said that it happened recently.
Well, and see, I wouldn't have as much of a beef with that because crazy stuff happens in comics.
Exactly.
But when you take and you violate the 75-year history of the character, there's World War II veterans that you look up to him. There's like I've heard from people in England and Argentina on this. There are people deeply, deeply, deeply offended and upset about it. I think it's sick. I personally think it's sick to take somebody who was created by Jewish immigrants as a symbol to fight Hitler and to suddenly say he's been a Nazi the whole time. I think it's sick and disgusting.
It's not the smartest thing Marvel's ever done. And if nothing else, they're gonna, if you went back and went through all of the Captain America continuity, you're going to find him doing things that there's absolutely no reason for
they say it's gonna
double
fit.
agent.
They're saying it's going to fit.
Really, they've gone through every single Captain America story in the last 75 years to make sure it fits.
Well, here's the thing that set me off, okay? And people can go to shaneplays.com, look at the show notes, and I've linked not only a video that I put up on YouTube, just absolutely losing my mind. I don't usually do reaction videos, but I went nuclear, and it's got it's already had like 5,000 visits. There's comments out the wazoo. There's about 5% of the people are like either hell Hydra or give this a chance. Almost everybody is like disgusted.
And now you know why Marvel did it, because everyone's also buying that comic book.
Well, I don't know. I went to my comic book store on Wednesday, and it was sitting there untouched.
Wow.
Yeah, I canceled. Now, so here's the thing.
Really did spark a rage.
Rage is a great word for it. And I think there are, now I think that America is a culture of outrage right now. And
we do like to get mad about
But
stuff.
I think this one is, like, I personally am all in. I called my comic book store. I said, drop all Marvel. I'm not reading any Marvel while this is allowed to. And I was probably reading 10, 15, 20 Marvel books a week or a month easy. At least 10 on my reserve list, plus picking other stuff up. And they were getting me more and more into their books.
See, I've already dropped all Marvel except for one title because the storytelling is just not there.
Yeah, well, they're so focused on diversity right now over storytelling. And if you read like Axel Alonso, who's a head honcho in Marvel, he's got an agenda. The writer, Nick Spencer, has an extreme agenda. When you go read his Twitter feed, he's basically doing this to say, well, if we're in America where Donald Trump can be doing well, we're really evil. So that's what he's trying to do.
Do you feel like, well, I mean, that's a whole other thing there, but do you feel like maybe they're attempting to, instead of just putting the characters in there to be inclusive, they're like holding up a sign saying, hey, we're inclusive, and you think that's a problem? They're making too much of a propaganda out of it, just simply putting it in the story?
There's nothing wrong with having diversity and inclusiveness,
right?
But I stop co-opting existing characters. If the public, if your audience really wants diversity, they will buy diversity if you put it in there,
and they'll read it.
Right. So I saw a tweet on this that kind of summed it up. We were talking about this before the show, and somebody said, so like now Black Panther is the supreme wizard of the KKK. That's the level this is on.
And that would be offensive too, because Black Panther's a great character.
Yeah, but I'm saying and they said all the X-Men are really members of the Westboro Baptist Church. Right.
Okay.
This is the level. Now take that to a patriotic character with 75 years of history. Right before Memorial Day. This is beyond
that timing was not a coincidence.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting and sad. And this has, I mean, if you go to like there's always a backlash when stuff like that. But I think this is really beyond what they expected. Publicity. Yeah, but I think this is beyond what they expected. There's a lot of people dropping their Marvel books. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people furious. There's a lot of people outraged. They're talking about their, like, producer GL was talking before this, they're talking about their, hey, my grandfather's, this, and I mean, this is, I think they've stepped over it on this one.
Well, I'm not the fanboy type to get mad just because they did something different. As we were talking about earlier, I love Batman and Robin, the Schumacher movie, nobody else does. But when you go to the point that you fundamentally alter the nature of the character.
That's the point.
See, that's how I felt at the end of the movie Hannibal. I'm not going to get into details, but they had the character do something he never would have done. That character would not have done that because they just didn't like the way the book ended. Yeah. Well,
that's the point that I'm trying. We got a call here, GL. Go ahead and grab that. That's the point. A lot of people are like, dude, you're overreacting. It's just a comic book. Dude, give it a chance. No, I'm not giving it a chance because the writers, or the writer Nick Spencer and Tom Brevoort, an editor at Marvel, they're on record in articles saying, no, this is not temporary. This is permanent. And it's been this way. Yeah, it's been this way for 75 years.
Right.
We got a call from Otto. I'm going to take that real quick. Then we're going to wrap this.
All right.
And I want to get to a break and talk about your stuff, Kristofer. Cool. So, Otto, welcome to the Shane Plays. What's up, man?
Not much. I completely agree with you on everything. See, they just did something with Superman when they got rid of the New 52 and they brought back the original Superman because fans were outraged.
Right.
And they stopped buying comics. So, of course, that's the way to get them to change.
Right.
But also, this might have been a good story if they would have done something like they did with Superman. They did was a short series. It wasn't a full, complete universe, 75-year transfer, thing.
Right.
It was a short story. Remember, Superman, son of, was it the Red Sun?
Right.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was an Elseworld story.
He crash landed in Russia.
Right, which is a fantastic story.
It is.
It was a what-if alternate universe.
Right.
They didn't fundamentally change the character. Right. So Otto, I mean, what do you agree with me? And if you don't, that's fine. Do you agree with me that they've crossed the line beyond just comic books and they've insulted sort of a large part of like American culture?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Marvel really, and I'll tell you, Kristofer and Otto and GL, I'll tell you who so far is setting like a rose on this, but people are starting to go, wait a minute, Disney owns Marvel now. Mm-hmm. This is ultimately a Disney's feat to take a beloved American icon and say he's a Nazi. I think some heat needs to go on Disney on this. So anyway, Otto, man, I hate to do this. I don't want to take too much time from the main segment with Kristofer. Do you have any other quick thoughts on this?
No, that's it. I'll go with that for now.
All right. Well, now if you got anything else, go ahead and throw it out there.
No, it's like you said, just, the whole, if it was just like a what-if thing, it'd have been maybe something like a thought, and that'd be just a weird, but interesting story, but the whole change, the complete retcon, that's just insane.
I think it is vile, sick, and offensive to say he's a Nazi based on what he represents and who created him. Now, I would have no problem if they had said, well, the Cosmic Cube changed him, so now suddenly he's a Nazi. Or even a really well-spoken demagogue got him under his wing, because then you have to test your ideals. Do they really hold up? This is ridiculous.
Or some powerful force somehow altered the timeline, but that's a story to resolve.
Right.
That they made it where in this timeline, he's always been a Nazi and you got to fight to get back to,
Well, I think my guess is that's where they're going. Because there was a Cosmic Cube that healed him. So they're going to say,
could have cost a lot.
But to go back and say the whole 75-year history, it's beyond an interesting story. All right, Otto, man, I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for calling in. Okay. I don't know about you. I'm not buying any Marvel. I've dropped it all. So
buy Silver Surfer.
Kristofer likes Silver Surfer. Thanks, Otto, man. I appreciate you, buddy.
All right, talk to you later.
Yeah. Hey, GL, throw us your thoughts on this real quick, and then take us to a break, man. We're going to get back and talk with Kristofer about his stuff.
Yeah, like I had told you before, I wasn't the biggest Captain America fan, but I just think it should have been something that is temporary, because I didn't hear because I never kept up with him, and me only hearing from people when they talk about stuff that's not even comic book related, I just think that says something. Like you talking about your grandfathers and war vets and stuff like that. I think it just goes a little bit past comic books. But
I agree, man. That's my point. And everybody keeps going, dude, wait to see how it's a cliffhanger. I'm like, no, man, this is beyond all that.
You'd be like telling the British that James Bond has always been a member of Spectre, you know?
Yeah, or a Nazi.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the James Bond was really Guy Fawkes, with the one who was going to blow up
You should see
Parliament.
the rage in his face. His eyeballs are about to pop out and shoot at me.
Yeah, I'm not happy. I usually don't encounter geek rage. I'm truly ticked off. Anyway,
welcome to it.
I want to go ahead and go to break so we talk about yourself, Kristofer. Thanks for being a good sport about this. Folks, I'm not buying Marvel. And I hope that some of you out there would consider the same. Because this is beyond the pale, in my opinion. You mentioned that before the show, and I mentioned that in my video, I think. I said, this is beyond the pale. Anyway, go watch that video. Leave your comments on that. It's linked on the Shane Play show notes page. GL, take us to a break.
Hold on to your butt.
June 11th to 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock, the River City Comic Expo is Arkansas's largest comic, toy, game, cosplay convention and now features the Little Rock Picture Show. Guests for 2016 include Neil Adams, Mike Zeck, James Aubert, Larry Hama, Michael Golden, and Arkansas's own Mitch and Elizabeth Brettreiser, John Lucas, and Dusty Higgins. You'll find booth after booth with artists and dealers representing comics, toys, books, movies, games, and so much more. So come on out to the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. RiverCityComicExpo.com.
Fairly alarmed here.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Lord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I ranted. I got my rant out. Well, it's not out. I'm just not going to talk about it anymore, about the Captain America Hydra thing. I'm like, hey, can we get, sorry, GL, can we get Chris? There we go. We're getting Chris's mic on. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, I got my rant out talking about the Captain America thing. I personally am not buying Marvel. I think what they did is disgusting and sick by turning Captain America into a Nazi and saying it's not only permanent, or it's got far-reaching consequences, but it's actually been his entire 75-year history. So I'm not buying Marvel, and I hope nobody else does as well. But that's me. My guest Christopher loves Silver Surfer, and it sounds like he's going to keep reading it, and that's his choice, man. Okay, so Kristofer Upjohn, the Film Phreak, spelled Phreak. We met at the River City Comic Expo last year. You had a booth, with your horror books and different things, and we struck up a good conversation. Now, if people go to shaneplays.com and look for the show notes, I've got links there for your Twitter, and I've got links there for your books on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so go to shaneplays.com. But you're also, I think, on... do you write for a blog called The Bloodshed?
I'm on hiatus right now, but yes, I'm one of their writers. I tend to handle a lot of their really indie stuff.
Okay, so what you are is you're an expert in the horror genre or genre as art, not just as shock value.
Absolutely.
So, and a lot of people look down on horror. There is some gratuitous shock value stuff out there, but horror fills an artistic role.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people, it's like the dirty little secret. They don't want to acknowledge that they enjoy horror movies or whatever. Now, when I was a kid, I watched all the slasher stuff, and I watched this. I basically got traumatized at what year did Friday the 13th come out?
1981.
Okay, so I probably saw it when I was about 10 on HBO or something. It traumatized me, dude.
It's a scary movie.
Yeah, just totally traumatized.
Especially
me.
that last shot in
the
lake.
That's one of the best twists in a movie ever. But horror can also be, as I've gotten older, I much more respect the Rosemary's Baby kind of horror, where something's not quite right here, but
slow burn.
Yeah, which
has come back lately.
Yeah, it really has. And I thought that. I don't know. Horror has a place.
Absolutely does.
I've lost my I won't watch Saw. It doesn't sound
not to my taste either.
Yeah, I've heard people describe it as torture porn. I don't know if that's fair or not.
That's the common term. That Saw would actually be a fairly classic example of torture porn.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a fair characterization because I haven't seen it, but I have no desire for that.
Right.
But Invasion of the Body Snatchers, using horror as an allegory for the fear of communism.
Right.
Amazing stuff. So,
and of course, that movie's been remade a couple of times, and every time it comes out, there's always some level of paranoia in our culture, be it paranoia of the government, paranoia of another culture that we share space with, whatever.
All right. So tell us why are you so into horror, and what do you think that it can tell us?
As to why I'm so into horror, I don't know. I could say I don't know because I've been into horror as far back as I can remember. My dad used to watch horror movies when I was a kid. And
now, are we talking like the Hammer horror or like what?
I discovered Hammer on my own later, but I remember one of my earliest memories is my dad watching the Burnt Offerings, which was a Dan Curtis movie. Dan Curtis is the guy that did Dark Shadows. He did a lot of those TV gothic things.
Okay.
And that was a gothic movie, but it terrified me as a kid. And I always would be terrified to have nightmares. My mother hated that my dad let me watch those movies because he let me watch them and she had to deal with me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But so, I grew up around them, but I always came back for that fear. There was something about that. And I think on a subconscious level, it's helping. These movies in one way or another are about death, be it personal, physical death or the death of the status quo of your life, something going completely out the rails.
Do you think the deeper psychological thing is just about change?
Even up to the point of death, change on its most fundamental level, like the death card in the tarot deck. That's not about physical death. It's about massive change. Right.
Yeah. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It means something.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The Tower card is the bad one. Yeah. Supposedly. They get that wrong in the horror movies.
Oh, is it? Well, it's always the better card, symbolism, right?
Yeah. It's a way of confronting our most primal fears.
Right.
And so these movies tend to be very primal, either psychologically primal, like in Rosemary's Baby and the slow burn movies, or physically primal. And there is a lot of shock, but that's one method of inducing fear, and when you have, say, movies that are particularly violent, well, we all have fundamental fears of bodily disfigurement, being maimed, whatever.
Right.
That's why we're afraid of needles at the doctor's office. It's the fear of being penetrated, our body.
Yeah.
This body is the vessel for our personality.
Right.
And so we fear anything that threatens to destroy our home.
Violate it.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I think there a huge case can be made for horror. A lot of people just want to write it off, but it can be an art form. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes it's just straight up shock, and let's see how we can grow. Let's see how we can gross people out. But and there was a place for that in my life at one time. I used to be the kid sitting cross-legged on the floor at the grocery store reading Fangoria. Yeah. Right. So
me too.
There was a part of me that like really got into that or wanted to watch. Remember Faces of Death? Didn't that turn out to be a fake documentary?
I think the first one used some real footage, but that's because that's also why it was the least interesting.
Yeah. Because, just you're fascinated. Like when you're a kid, man, Faces of Death comes on and all the kids, they just want to watch it, or like a video of somebody getting hit by a train or something like that. The shockumentary. Yeah.
Which goes all the way back to Italy in the 60s with the movie Mondocani.
Oh, see, I know you're much deeper on this. Probably the deepest I've ever gone into on horror as an art form, why we love it and what it can do is, of course, I read in the 80s, I read Stephen King's Dance Macabre. What's your opinion on that? Do you think that he was on to anything? Or
I think so. I mean, he was basically in his way saying the same thing that I'm saying, that there's deeper fears there. I mean, Earth versus the Flying Saucers came out in the 50s, and I remember him talking about sitting in the theater, and they shut the movie down and came in and said, "Hey, there's the Sputnik was launched,"
right?
Which in the 50s, and you're a kid. I mean, that's terrifying,
right?
The Russians got into space before we did. I mean, as a child, and when adults are scared, a kid's going to be.
Well, it's interesting that he paired, because I know that what you're talking about. He paired that memory with the Earth versus the Flying Saucers movie, which at the time it came out would be kind of a scary movie,
right?
Yeah, especially if you're a little kid going to the matinees. Yeah.
Yeah, that touched every theme that made Russia launching Sputnik frightening.
Right. Yeah, I remember they actually, he described that the manager shut down the movie because this is back when movies, like, there was a stage.
Right.
And he came out onto the stage and said, I have to tell you that.
Right.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, that's got to be scary. That was
Try to process that as
anyway.
a 10-year-old kid. Yeah, I just watched it recently. Who's that stop motion effects genius?
Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, that's one of his.
He did great with the Flying Saucers. And
Yeah, I watched that fairly recently.
Fantastic movie. It's really good.
Yeah, and I love how Stephen King describes it. He's like, most movies give the Martians motivations or this or that. He goes, in Earth versus the Flying Saucers, they simply descended on Washington, D.C. and began kicking butt, but he didn't say butt. He said something. Yeah, they just showed up and started kicking butt.
Well, but even that's, some people might criticize it for not having a motive, but I mean, isn't that what people do?
Right.
They invade other countries, whatever, and that would have touched on, again, that would have touched heavily on a lot of the fears. Even if it wasn't intended, art always has a random component where you don't always realize what you're expressing when you're creating it.
Right.
And if that's
that's an interesting, so you can, that's interesting.
Yeah. If you have this kind of fear in the back of your head, it can't help but work its way into your art.
So do you have, I know this is a softball question. I'm just going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Do you feel that people can use horror, either fiction or comic books or radio dramas or movies as a catharsis to work through
absolutely.
Stuff? Do you have any examples of that maybe where you've researched that or?
I can't, other than my own life and just, a lot of times, there have been times in my life, if I'm really just intensely angry about something, I've had a particular album I would go to and I would just play it really loud, scream along to it, and
got it out.
I've gotten it out. I mean, I know that according to psychological studies, like rage catharsis, like going in and letting somebody tear up a room, doesn't work because it builds the rage. But I think maybe on a deeper level, it does give us an outlet. It's a way for us to confront our aggression, because Stephen King, I remember, again, I used to read him a lot. He said one time, my books have this, that, and everything else, but do you want someone to read my book and get it out of their system that way, or go push grandma down the stairs?
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing that's always stuck with me, and I've used this in various areas of my life, the principle behind this,
right?
The monster behind the door is always scarier than the monster revealed.
Yeah, and see,
always.
Now, as a grown-up, I understand. As a kid, I liked the flashy stuff, the gore, the violence, the pure shock.
But you were never as scared of it once you saw it as you were like wondering what it was going to look like.
Then you just turned into one of the people that was laughing at the movie or in awe of the special effects. Because we horror nerds, we're big fans of the effects guys too. Yeah. Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, guys did all that great practical stuff back in the day when they didn't have computers to do it for them. Which, not to dismiss computer technology, but I love it has that organic three-dimensional reality when it's purely practical.
Well, you've got and I commend J.J. Abrams and also I can't remember the guy's name who directed Mad Max Fury Road.
For
going more back.
George Miller.
Yeah, for going more back.
He
to
did
practical.
that. He's done that whole series.
Yeah, Fury Road was
fantastic,
astounding, and that was
great movie.
I mean, all those vehicles were real.
And there's supposed to be more. He's supposed to do another one. I think.
Yeah, that was my favorite movie of last year.
He also made Babe, Pig in the City. No,
yeah, isn't that weird?
I don't know if he made the first Babe. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's so weird. You know, I speaking of, you know, the monster behind the door is I just think there's such a fundamental psychological principle there,
right?
And I think horror is probably the genre that makes us confront it the most, you know. But you know, sometimes the monster you see can be pretty darn scary too.
Right.
One of the last horror movies I really watched, and I can remember just really watching it, and it really got under my skin, was the first American The Ring. When the girl crawling out of the sewer or the well, that was some scary imagery.
If you can induce fear on a psychological level, that's, you know, even more getting inside a person than just, hey, look, someone's
that movie creeped me. You know, when you're a kid, it's fairly common to watch a scary movie and then you're laying in bed pretty much terrified because it's gotten those feelings of terror going in you.
What kind of masochist does it make you to come back for more?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, like I said, it must be, there's something in it. I don't know. But anyway, but as an adult, I can probably count on my one hand, how many times in The Ring. And, you know, I think the first Blair Witch did that to me too.
It was, the first time I saw it, I was just nauseated, literally, because I was in the theater on the front row. But when I went back and watched it again, I thought it was brilliant. I love found footage movies.
Yeah, the found footage has a very strong, you know, there's a couple I've seen that I've been like,
well, some people use it strictly as a gimmick and it has no real heft to it. The last movie I saw that just left me breathless, and I remember saying when I walked out of the theater, I remember now why I got into horror as a kid, is when I watched As Above, So Below.
I haven't seen that.
Found footage movie set in the catacombs in Paris.
Go ahead, say it, GL. You're worked up about something. Your mic's not on, buddy.
No, that movie was beasting. Like,
really, it got you.
Yeah,
that movie.
But did it just make you jump, or did it scare you, GL?
It creeped me out.
Okay, that's
it had jumps in it, but by the end of the movie, it had built you up to such a constant level of tension that when something happened, you were so high strung. There was no way. It was just. It was one of the best horror movies I've ever seen, I think.
Now, what did you think? I'm gonna ask you this real quick, and then after you answer this, we'll cut to a break and come back. What now? I know that as the series goes on, it's probably getting worse and worse, and like, you know, as sequels keep going. But I've heard the original Paranormal Activity was pretty creepy.
I've actually enjoyed every movie in that series. Some are better than others, but the first one's not even my favorite.
Really?
Yeah. They use everyone is tied into the original movie in one way or another.
Yeah.
Even when I think in the fourth one they left that original storyline and went out into the the Spanish ghetto, the Mexican ghetto.
Oh
like
yes,
that.
I don't know.
And but they even still managed to tie it back around to it's building on itself. But those are good. They've maintained quality in my opinion.
Have they? Now I've seen 4, I think, or parts of it.
Yeah,
I think. And here's what I was most impressed with was the creative ways they found for cameras to be in different places.
Yeah,
like 4 relied a lot on the Xbox Kinect technology with the little dots going around the room.
Yeah, that's
like
the hardest thing with that kind of movie is to justify why there's a camera on.
Well, have you seen? Is it Grave Consequences? Grave Encounters? Yeah, Grave Encounters.
I like those.
Well, the second one, they finally had to say, because they actually had the ghost picking up cameras, you know.
But that's a nice touch.
Yeah, but they were like, this scene, there's no way we can do it without the ghost actually.
Well, at least they addressed it.
Yeah,
they didn't just try to.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what was creepy to me in Grave Encounters. Like, I saw most of the shocks coming.
Yeah.
What was creepy to me was that the time they got, like, the time wouldn't change.
Right.
And no matter which door they went through, they were still caught.
Yeah.
So all the normal things you would do to escape didn't, and that scared me.
Even that one where they thought they were out and they got miles away. Oh, man,
that to me is much scarier.
That was the bottom dropping out of your gut right there.
That to me is much scarier than something jumping.
Fear and atmosphere go a long way. I love those things.
Oh man, yeah, they had you know, like all the things you say, well, I would do this if they were in this situation, and then they did it. Yeah. Well,
it's safe to say that it's easy to say that when you're safe in your room, not being harrowed by something.
And Scream, of course, addressed some of that stuff.
Right.
It's like, why would the dumb? And I loved the first Scream.
Well, you should watch Cabin in the Woods then, because
Cabin in the Woods is amazing.
It's what Scream was trying to do and really couldn't quite get.
We'll talk about Cabin in the Woods when we come back. That is an amazing meta deconstructionist.
It's in my book.
Absolutely, probably one of the best movies I've seen in the past several years.
Oh yeah!
Wow, amazing commentary by wasn't that Joss Whedon?
Yes, I believe so. It was Joss Whedon,
amazing commentary on the horror genre.
Yeah, he's a good writer.
All right, let's go to a break, Jill. When we come back, we'll talk about Cabin in the Woods.
Hold on to your butts.
June 11th to 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock, the River City Comic Expo is Arkansas's largest comic, toy, game, cosplay convention and now features the Little Rock Picture Show. Guests for 2016 include Neil Adams, Mike Zeck, James Aubert, Larry Hama, Michael Golden, and Arkansas's own Mitch and Elizabeth Brettweiser, John Lucas, and Dusty Higgins. You'll find booth after booth with artists and dealers representing comics, toys, books, movies, games, and so much more. So come on out to the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. RiverCityComicExpo.com.
Fairly alarmed here.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. Journey into the things we love. Forgot before the break to throw some love at sponsor Game Goblins. We're going to do that. And then Kristofer Upjohn, the horror author and expert, the film freak himself, we're going to talk a little bit about Cabin in the Woods and why it's such a genius movie when it comes to the horror genre. All right, so some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. And don't forget, I'm working with Game Goblins to have role-playing games for the first time ever at the River City Comic Expo. Go to the Shane Plays show notes page or look for RPG games at River City Comic Expo on Facebook. If you buy your ticket to the River City Comic Expo at normal door price through Game Goblins, you get an RPG game session for free. So make sure to check that out. All right, so right before the break,
yes,
Christopher, we were talking about, we've been talking about horror as an art form,
right? The
psychological aspects of it. And then you mentioned Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
Which I think is one of the most genius movies to come along in a long, brilliant. I had no idea.
It's a satire.
It's a satire. It's an essay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deconstruction. It's so many different things.
And it's also the thing that it is deconstructing, that it is satirizing. At the same time, it's that thing itself.
It's genius. Mm-hmm. So I was like working. I watch a lot of like Netflix or movies while I'm working on my computer. I've got two screens. I got something. I was like, what's this? It was late and I threw it on. And there was a couple of naughty bits that I personally skipped past. But I watched, 99% of the movie and amazed, absolutely amazed at this. I had no idea what was coming.
Oh,
and I should have, because the movie poster shows the cabin being twisted.
Right.
Like it's modular.
The puzzle box.
Yeah. So that should have clued me in.
But
something
even
was
knowing
coming.
that going into it, it's still, there's so many left turns.
They took every trope of horror movies and turned it into a comment on the genre.
Right.
So, from the Harbinger, if you go up there, you're doomed. From it's my uncle's cabin, and the guy's lady's like, I don't even have an uncle. Where Gene, if you haven't seen this movie, people, just for the essay value of it,
absolutely,
just for the deconstructing what the horror, I guess, threatened the threatened teenagers,
trapped by themselves and no help from adults, because that was the idea behind the original Friday the 13th. Some teenagers, isolate them from all authority and adults and help and scare the crap out of them.
One in the original Friday the 13th, the one adult counselor, he shows back up in the rain and gets killed. Right. So they got rid of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he was useless anyway.
Yeah, he was useless anyway. But so this movie's genius, Cabin in the Woods.
Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. And it took me, because it keeps going between sort of a corporate setting and you're like, you realize something's up, but you don't know what.
Yep.
And the movie's been out long enough. I'm just going to go ahead and do spoilers.
Oh, yeah, it's been out plenty.
I finally got what was happening when Chris Hemsworth jumps on his motorcycle and hits the force field.
Yep.
Then it clicked. I finally realized what the heck is going on.
And there's a dark humor to that too, because he hits it, just bounces all the way down. I can't help it. I'm the guy that laughs at stuff that nobody else laughs at in these movies.
You're that guy, huh?
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother psychological thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What I liked about that movie was it wasn't just a parody. It wasn't just, we'll just take that and do the opposite.
It wasn't just done for laughs.
Right. It was a satire. There was a real intelligence to the way they reacted to the tropes. I mean, the stoner guy who's usually an idiot, obnoxious, gets killed off, ends up being the one that figures out what's going on.
Right. And the fact that he was smoking pot is what made him immune to, which I guess there's some commentary there. But
there's a lot of
let me be clear, I'm not advocating smoking pot.
No,
I'm
we're just saying, talking about the brilliance of the writing.
The movie, they're obviously, the stoner guy who's usually killed off second or third and is played for laughs up to that point.
And is one of the last people to make it through to the end. Him and, of course, the quote-unquote virgin character. These are all being tropes. In this case, they're recognizing these tropes as archetypes. That movie was telling you the same thing I mentioned in my book in the first chapter, what I do on Friday the 13th. I talk about how this
mention a couple of your books real quick. I want to make sure
the best one I think I did was A Horror is Art. It's a collection of serious, intelligent essays about popular movies, obscure movies, but it's all about how I think it's unfair to write off horror as exploitation as opposed to art. Michelangelo got paid to do the Sistine Chapel, so is that a work of exploitation? Art has historically been associated with money. Artists want to make money off of what they do.
Right.
Making anything creative involves some level of art. Now, you might be a bad artist, but even that's subjective.
It's art on a certain level.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's It's just so genius with the archetypes. And I love when at the end things have gotten to the point, basically they're saying that there's a ritual sacrifice that has to happen every year. I'm assuming it's every year, some intermittent point.
Right, in all these different countries.
And if it doesn't happen, then like basically the Cthulhu elder gods destroy everything.
Nice little Lovecraftian reference.
And a set of teenagers wakes up to what's going on and they refuse.
Yeah.
And they let the world be destroyed. Rather
that kind of takes you back to the teen movies of various genres in the 50s and 60s where, the kids are right and the establishment's
the
wrong.
Blob's a classic example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Those wacky kids.
And Steve McQueen and the giant Reb Jello.
Yeah. Well, that was a classic. The teenagers are trying to tell you what's happening.
Right. And this just went through all the satire to get back to basically being what those movies have always been. It's just a really... Roger Ebert has one of my favorite quotes. He said one time that it's not what a movie is about, but how it's about it.
Yeah, that is a good quote.
Yeah,
that is a great quote. Yeah, and I mean, I think that I definitely think that movies like Cabin in the Woods are an example of movies transcending an entertainment experience. And really, that was such a brilliant movie.
It was.
And I'm still trying to figure out, other than the stick it to the man factor, I'm still trying to figure out what were they trying to say that the girl and the guy at the end say, no, we're not going to be pawns and we'll let the world be destroyed. I'm still trying to figure out what were they trying to say.
I think that was a statement of pessimism. I mean, this is obviously a small school of thought. There are those who think that, human life is just such a tragedy that it would be better off if it had never happened. There's a group,
I disagree with, by the way.
I'm just explaining that now I don't know if the movie was saying that or if it was just, I think it was just basically being cynical about the state of mankind, but it was using hyperbole. We should just all die. I don't think Joss Whedon was saying we should all die.
Yeah.
But
I felt like as a rebellious, there's a deeper principle than one life for everybody. There's a deeper principle that what you have done to us is an outrage. Yeah. That's kind of how I read it.
Well, it's sometimes we use hyperbole to make a point. He's not saying we should all die. He's just saying, hey, our situation's kind of rough.
Right.
Just, it's just the classic pessimist viewpoint. And I don't mean pessimism as like grumpy, everything's bad, but classic pessimism that you're simply realistically acknowledging that the human state is not what it could be. I mean, look at the book of Ecclesiastes. That's technically a work of pessimism with
wisdom worked in.
Right, with a God caveat.
I mean, it's a very... It ends on a high note. Is like if you take this wisdom, but there's some hard truths you need to learn.
Human life, it looks at this just the earthly life as with a viewpoint of pessimism. The only hope in it is the transcendent divine,
exactly. Perfect, great way to put it. Right. Yeah, I can tell you're a writer. Yeah, he's like, there's nothing new under the sun. Right. And if you depend just on men, life's
and no matter what you do, you're going to be unhappy if you're attached. It's basically about non-attachment, which is something that. Christ preached, Buddha preached, Krishna preached. I mean, it's something common to almost every world religion is if you want to have peace, you can't be too attached.
Yeah. Well,
because if it's all hung up here, if your treasure's here, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And the Ecclesiastes does end on basically thank God for God.
Right.
So all right. We got literally, the time always goes so quick. Times of Predators talks all our lives. We got 2 minutes left.
Okay. I have to give props to my wife who did the cover art for Horror is Art.
And that's the one where it's the
Scream.
the classic Scream with the machete in his head. Yeah.
That was my wife. She's an artist.
Yeah.
So I have to give her props for that.
I love that cover. I've got that picture on the show notes. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you want to, real quick, we got about a minute, do you want to throw out a movie or a book that you just feel it's an absolute shame that nobody's seen or read in the genre?
Oh, my goodness. I tell you what, just off the top of my head, because I know as soon as I walk out of here, I'll
kick yourself.
Everybody should go check out Roman Polanski's Repulsion from the 60s.
Did he not also do Rosemary's Baby?
He did Rosemary's Baby, Ninth
Repulsion.
Gate. Yeah. Okay. It's a little bit surrealist, but if you have to think of the character's apartment as basically her mind, it's an allegorical horror film. Very psychological. Repulsion. Okay. Brilliant.
Any books or anything that?
Pick up anything by Thomas Ligotti. He is Lovecraft, only better.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
How can people find you online?
They can go to, I have a Twitter account. It's the
Film Phreak.
Filmphreak.tumblr.com.
But spell Phreak.
Phreak. Yeah. I've got Noir Journal on there for anybody that's into crime fiction or crime movies. And I've got, you can find my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, create space.
Go to shaneplays.com. I got you.
And I'll be back
there.
at the Bloodshed at some point in the future. Just keep an eye out there for the Film Phreak.
All right, cool. I got to wrap this up. Quote of the week: "Comics are a gateway drug to literacy." Art Spiegelman, of course.
Awesome.
Mouse. Thanks for listening to Shane Plays Radio.